The planet Arion was known for its beauty. Silver rivers crossed green fields. Tall crystal towers shined under the light of two suns. Traders from hundreds of worlds came there every day. To most visitors, Arion looked peaceful. But hidden behind that beauty was a world full of politics, secrets, and powerful families. Among those powerful people lived Princess Lyra, daughter of one of the most respected noble houses in the Aurelian Empire. Many expected her to marry a rich commander or an influential governor. Instead, she married a human. His name was Ethan Walker. To most people, Ethan seemed completely ordinary. He owned a small workshop near the edge of the capital city. He repaired farming machines, transport vehicles, and sometimes even children's toys. He was friendly to everyone. He greeted neighbors every morning. He helped old people carry heavy bags. He never spoke badly about anyone. Most importantly, nobody had ever seen him lose his temper. Not once. Many aliens found this strange. Some admired him. Others thought it meant he was weak. On this particular morning, Ethan was fixing a broken delivery drone when a young alien boy ran toward him. Mr. Ethan, Mr. Ethan. Ethan looked up and smiled. What happened this time? The boy held up a damaged toy ship. It stopped working again. Ethan laughed softly. Again? The boy nodded. Ethan took the toy and examined it. A few minutes later, the tiny ship floated into the air. The boy's eyes became wide. It works! Try not to crash it into a wall this time. The boy grinned and ran away. Nearby shop owner smiled. This was normal for Ethan. Helping people seemed as natural as breathing. That evening, Ethan returned home. Their house stood on a hill overlooking the city. It was not a palace. It was not large or expensive, but it was warm, and it was filled with laughter. As Ethan entered, he found Lyra waiting for him. She was reading reports from the Imperial Council. The moment she saw him, her serious expression disappeared. There you are. Ethan kissed her forehead. Long day? Lyra sighed. You have no idea. Council problems? Worse. Ethan sat beside her. What happened? They spent 3 hours arguing about trade routes. Ethan laughed. Only 3 hours? Lyra threw a cushion at him. For a while, they simply enjoyed each other's company. No politics. No responsibilities. Just peace. Lyra often wondered how Ethan stayed calm all the time. She had seen politicians scream. Military officers threaten each other. Business leaders panic over small problems. But Ethan remained steady no matter what happened. Sometimes she asked herself if anything could truly make him angry. That question would soon have an answer. The next morning began like any other. Then the sky changed. A loud alarm echoed through the city. People looked upward. Large warships appeared between clouds. Their dark hulls blocked the sunlight. Citizens stopped walking. Markets became silent. Fear spread through the streets. Everyone recognized the symbols on those ships. The Imperial Council, the highest authority in the Empire. Ethan stepped outside his workshop. He frowned. This was unusual. The Council rarely visited Arion, and when they did, it was never a good sign. Within minutes, military transports landed across the city. Armored soldiers poured into the streets. People watched from windows and rooftops. Nobody understood what was happening. Then Ethan noticed something. Every transport was moving toward the hill, toward his home. A cold feeling settled in his stomach. Without wasting a second, he rushed back. By the time he arrived, dozens of soldiers already surrounded the house. Neighbors stood nearby, whispering nervously. Lyra stood at the entrance. Her face was calm, but Ethan could see concern in her eyes. An officer stepped forward. His armor was decorated with golden markings. Clearly, he was someone important. Princess Lyra, the officer announced. You are under arrest. The crowd gasped. Lyra stared at him. On what charge? Treason against the Empire. Silence followed. Even the officer's own soldiers looked uncomfortable. Lyra blinked. Treason? Those are the Council's orders. This is absurd. The officer remained expressionless. You will come with us. Ethan stepped forward. There must be some mistake. The officer finally looked at him. For a moment, His eyes showed amusement. A human? Ethan ignored the insult. My wife has done nothing wrong. The council disagrees. Then show the evidence. We do not answer civilians. The crowd exchanged nervous glances. Everyone could see something was wrong. No evidence. No hearing. No trial. Just accusations. Lyra took a deep breath. You know this is political. The officer did not deny it. That answer was enough. Someone powerful wanted Lyra removed. The charge itself did not matter. 2 soldiers approached her. Ethan moved instinctively. The soldiers immediately raised their weapons. The crowd became tense. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The officer looked directly at Ethan. Do not make this worse. Ethan clenched his fists. For the first time, anger appeared in his eyes, but only for a moment. Then it disappeared. The officer smiled. Perhaps he expected a fight. Perhaps he wanted an excuse. Instead, Ethan stepped back. The soldiers placed restraints on Lyra's wrists. Neighbors watched helplessly. Some lowered their heads. Others looked away. Lyra turned toward Ethan. For a brief moment, fear appeared in her eyes. Not for herself. For him. Because she knew how dangerous powerful people could be. Ethan, she said softly, I know. Everything he wanted to say remained trapped inside him. The soldiers led her away. Transport doors closed. Engines roared. The ships rose into the sky. Within minutes, they were gone. The crowd slowly dispersed. Nobody knew what to say. The house on the hill suddenly felt empty. Hours passed. Darkness covered the city. Ethan sat alone in silence. No lights, no music, no movement. The kind smile people knew so well was gone. For years, he had built a peaceful life. For years, he had avoided conflict. For years, he had buried a part of himself that nobody knew existed. Then a single tear rolled down his face. He looked toward the stars, toward the distant capital where Lyra was being taken, and something inside him finally broke. Slowly he stood. He walked into a locked room beneath the house, a room Lyra had never seen, a room nobody knew existed. Dust-covered ancient machines. Silent screens lined the walls. At the center stood a small black device. Ethan stared at it for several seconds. His expression became cold, not angry, not emotional, just cold, the kind of cold that appears before a storm. Then he pressed his hand against the device. Red lights suddenly awakened. Ancient systems came online. Across the room, hidden screens flickered to life. A message appeared. Identity confirmed. A second message followed. Last war protocol status. Dormant. Ethan closed his eyes. For a moment, the entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Then he spoke 4 words. Bring her back. The machine responded instantly. A signal burst into deep space, traveling farther than any civilian technology could reach. Ancient stations awakened. Forgotten fleets received orders. Sleeping systems opened their eyes. And on worlds scattered across the galaxy, old veterans looked toward the stars. The message they received was short, but it changed everything. Humanity's last war protocol has been activated. The signal crossed the galaxy faster than light. No civilian network detected it. No government scanner tracked it. No military intelligence system noticed it. Yet, on dozens of forgotten worlds, hidden machines suddenly awakened. Ancient communication towers powered on. Dust-covered terminals began to glow. Encrypted channels that had remained silent for centuries carried a single message. Last war protocol activated. Far away from Arion, on a frozen moon orbiting a dying star, an old man sat alone inside a small cabin. His name was Marcus Hale. To his neighbors, he was just a retired farmer, a quiet human who spent his days growing vegetables and repairing old equipment. Very few people knew the truth. 300 years earlier, Marcus had commanded one of humanity's largest battle fleets. Now, as a small device on his table flashed red, his face became pale. For several seconds, he simply stared at the message. Then he whispered, "No." His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, from memory, because he knew exactly what that signal meant. It meant someone had awakened the thing humanity had sworn never to use again. Without hesitation, Marcus stood up. Outside, snow covered the ground. The peaceful life he had built was over, at least for now. On another world, hidden beneath a desert, a massive underground facility came alive. Light stretched across endless hallways. Dormant reactors began producing power. Thousands of machines started running for the first time in generations. A mechanical voice echoed through the complex. Emergency protocols active. Personnel recall initiated. Strategic assets awakening. Deep inside the facility rested enormous warships. Ships that officially no longer existed. Ships that history books claimed had been destroyed centuries ago. One by one, their systems came online. The darkness vanished, and the sleeping giants opened their eyes. Meanwhile, on the Imperial capital world, Princess Lyra sat alone inside a detention chamber. The room was cold and silent. A single light hung from the ceiling. No windows, no communication devices, no information. The council had provided nothing, not even an explanation. Hours had passed since her arrest. Still, no official charges had been presented. Lyra leaned back against the wall. Something felt wrong, very wrong. The Empire was not perfect. She knew that. Politics could be cruel. Powerful families often fought each other behind closed doors. But the situation made no sense. Someone wanted her removed quickly, before questions could be asked, before facts could be examined, before anyone could interfere. A small sound interrupted her thoughts. Footsteps. The chamber door opened. An elderly woman entered. Counselor Vexa, one of the most influential members of the Imperial Council. Lyra immediately stood. Counselor. Vexa studied her carefully. For a moment, neither spoke. Then the older woman sighed. I wish things had happened differently. Lyra narrowed her eyes. You know these charges are false. Vexa remained silent. That silence told Lyra everything. You do know. Vexa looked away. There are forces moving inside the Empire. What does that mean? It means some people fear change. Lyra understood immediately. For years, she had supported stronger cooperation between species, especially humans. Not everyone liked that idea. Some powerful families believed aliens should remain divided, easier to control, easier to manipulate. And now those same people were moving against her. But treason? Lyra asked, that accusation is ridiculous. Vexa's expression darkened. Truth rarely matters when fear becomes useful. Before Lyra could respond, the counselor moved toward the door. Then she stopped. There is one more thing. What? Vexa hesitated. For the first time, uncertainty appeared in her eyes. Your husband. Lyra blinked. What about Ethan? The older woman seemed strangely uncomfortable. We investigated him. A faint smile appeared on Lyra's face. And nothing. What do you mean? Nothing at all. Now Lyra was confused. Vexa continued. No records before 20 years ago. No military history. No educational history. No family history. Nothing. The smile vanished from Lyra's face. That was impossible. Everyone had records, especially humans. The Empire tracked almost everything. Yet, somehow, Ethan seemed to appear from nowhere. Vexa lowered her voice. We searched every database we have. And we found a wall. A wall. A level of security so high that even the Imperial Council cannot access it. The room became silent. For the first time since her arrest, Lyra felt genuine concern, not because she feared Ethan, because she realized she might not know him as well as she thought. Back on Arion, Ethan stood inside the hidden room beneath his home. Dozens of holographic screens floated around him. Each displayed incoming reports, fleet movements, communication updates, status confirmations. For years, these systems had remained dormant. Now they were alive again. A new message appeared. Veteran recall, 68% complete. Another followed. Strategic fleet activation, 54% complete. Then another, awaiting supreme authorization. Ethan stared at the screens. His face revealed almost nothing. Yet deep inside, memories were returning. Memories he had spent years trying to forget. the faces of fallen friends, burning worlds, endless battles, the cost of war. A soft voice suddenly came from one of the screens. Ethan, he turned. An elderly woman appeared through the hologram. General Sophia Reyes, one of humanity's last living war commanders. Her hair was gray now. Her face carried the weight of many years, but her eyes remained sharp. Neither spoke for a moment. Finally she asked, "Is it true?" Ethan nodded. "They took Lyra." Sophia closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them again, sadness filled her expression. "We both knew this day might come. I hoped it never would." "So did I." Another silence followed. Then Sophia asked the question everyone else would eventually ask. "How far are you willing to go?" Ethan looked away from the screen. Outside, the stars shined peacefully. The same stars he had spent years protecting. The same stars he had hoped would never see another great war. "I don't know," he admitted. And for the first time since activating the protocol, those words frightened him because they were true. He genuinely did not know. At that very moment, inside a classified intelligence center, Imperial analysts were studying strange reports arriving from across the galaxy. A young officer rushed into the command room. "We have a problem." The room's director frowned. "What kind of problem?" The officer swallowed. "Human-related." The director sighed. "Be specific." The officer activated a holographic display. Dozens of locations appeared. Flashing red. "Abandoned human facilities are coming online." The director sat up straighter. "How many?" The officer hesitated, then answered, "All of them." The room fell silent. That was impossible. Thousands of sites existed. Most had been inactive for centuries. Yet every report showed the same thing. Power generation, communication activity, military-grade encryption. The director felt a chill run through his body. What triggered this? Nobody knew. And that uncertainty was the most terrifying part. Because somewhere in the darkness between the stars, something ancient was waking up. Something humanity had hidden from the rest of the galaxy. Something powerful enough to make old veterans leave retirement. Powerful enough to alarm intelligence agencies. Powerful enough to worry people who rarely felt fear. And at the center of it all stood one quiet man. The same man everyone had mistaken for an ordinary mechanic. The same man who never raised his voice. The same man whose wife had just been taken away. The galaxy still believed Ethan Walker was harmless. Soon, it would learn how dangerous that assumption truly was. 3 days passed. Across the Empire, rumors spread faster than official news. People whispered about strange events. Old human stations were becoming active. Military satellites were detecting unusual signals. Hidden facilities that should have remained silent were suddenly communicating with one another. The Imperial Council tried to calm the public. They called it a technical malfunction, a harmless system error. Very few believed them, especially the intelligence agencies, because they had seen the data, and the data made no sense. Inside the Imperial Intelligence Headquarters, Director Karan stood before a giant holographic display. Hundreds of reports floated in the air around him. Every report pointed toward the same mystery. Humanity. A young analyst approached carefully. "Sir," Karan looked up. "What is it now?" The analyst handed him another file. "We found another inactive human facility." Karan sighed. "And it isn't inactive anymore." The director closed his eyes briefly. That made 37 facilities in less than 2 days. Every time they discovered one, it had already awakened. Every time they investigated further, they found nothing useful. No records, no access, no explanations, only silence. Karan opened the file. A picture appeared. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary mountain. But hidden beneath that mountain was a structure larger than most cities. A structure nobody knew existed. Karan stared at it. "How did we miss this?" The analyst looked embarrassed. "It was built 3 centuries ago." "That doesn't answer my question." "We believe the humans wanted it hidden." The director laughed humorlessly. "Clearly, for years, the Empire believed it understood humanity. Humans traded. Humans explored. Humans built businesses. Humans help solve disputes. Compared to older galactic powers, they seemed unusually cooperative, perhaps too cooperative. Now, Quran was beginning to wonder if the entire galaxy had misunderstood them. Meanwhile, deep beneath the Imperial Palace, Princess Lyra remained imprisoned. She had finally been allowed access to official reports. Unfortunately, most of them raised more questions than answers. The treason charges still contained no evidence, no witnesses, no proof, no explanation, only accusations. Someone wanted her removed. That much was obvious. But who? And why now? As she studied another report, the chamber door opened. A guard entered. Visitor. Lyra frowned. Who? The guard hesitated, then stepped aside. Counselor Vexa entered again. This time she looked tired, far more tired than before. Lyra immediately noticed it. What happened? Vexa gave a weak smile. The Empire is becoming nervous. About me? No. The answer came instantly. That alone worried Lyra. The counselor sat down. For several moments, she seemed unsure what to say. Finally she spoke. The human records investigation continues. Lyra straightened. And we still can't access anything. Nothing at all? Nothing. The older woman rubbed her forehead. The deeper we dig, the stranger becomes. Lyra remained silent. Part of her wanted answers. Another part feared them. Vexa continued. Do you know how many security levels exist above Imperial Council? None. That's what we thought too. The room became quiet. Then Vexa activated a small holographic projector. Several symbols appeared. Ancient symbols. Human symbols. Symbols Lyra had never seen before. What are those? Authorization seals. For what? Vexa swallowed. The highest military authority in human history. A cold feeling spread through the room. Neither woman spoke. After several seconds, Lyra finally asked, What did you find? Vexa looked directly at her. We found Ethan Walker's name. Lyra's heart skipped a beat. And the counselor hesitated, then answered, Every document connected to that name was classified beyond our access. Lyra stared at her. That's impossible. So we thought. But one file wasn't fully locked. Hope appeared briefly. What did it say? Vex's voice became quieter. There was only one sentence. What sentence? The counselor looked uncomfortable, as if repeating the words itself made her nervous. Finally she spoke. Access denied. Strategic authority exceeds imperial clearance. Lyra felt her stomach tighten. Strategic authority? What did that even mean? Who exactly had she married? Far away, on the edge of known space, a massive object drifted through darkness. Official maps labeled the region empty, unimportant, unexplored. The maps were wrong. Hidden inside a nebula rested one of humanity's greatest secrets. A ship, not a normal warship, not a cruiser, not a carrier, something much larger. Its length stretched for hundreds of kilometers. Entire cities could fit inside it. For 300 years it had slept. Now light slowly illuminated its enormous hull. Ancient engines began warming. Thousands of systems activated one after another. A mechanical voice echoed through endless corridors. Command vessel awakening, awaiting orders. Deep inside the ship, automated crews prepared for deployment. Weapons calibrated. Navigation systems synchronized. Defense grids powered up. The giant vessel had only one purpose: to answer a call that humanity hoped would never come. Back on Arion, Ethan stood alone outside his home. The city below remained peaceful. People still went to work. Children still played in the streets. Life continued. Most citizens had no idea what was happening behind the scenes. Perhaps that was for the best. A transport landed nearby. Its engines shut down. A single passenger stepped out. Marcus Hale, the retired admiral from a frozen moon. The old man approached slowly. Neither spoke immediately. They simply looked at each other. Two survivors from another age. Finally, Marcus broke the silence. I was hoping I'd never see this protocol activated again. Ethan nodded. So was I. Marcus looked toward the horizon. The fleets are assembling. I know. The stations are online. I know. The old commanders are returning. Ethan remained silent. Marcus studied him carefully. After a moment, he asked, "Do you remember what happened last time?" The question hung heavily in the air, because both men remembered. Every survivor remembered. Humanity had won that war. But victory had come at a terrible price. Entire sectors vanished. Billions died. The scars remained visible centuries later. Ethan looked away. Every day. Marcus sighed. "Then tell me something." "What?" The old admiral's expression hardened. "Are we heading toward another war?" For several seconds, Ethan did not answer. The wind moved through the grass around them. Far above, stars shined peacefully. Finally, Ethan spoke. "No." Marcus looked relieved. Then Ethan continued. "Not if they return Lyra." The relief disappeared instantly, because Marcus understood exactly what those words meant. A choice still existed, but only one. Elsewhere, inside the Imperial Palace, Emperor Cassian received a classified briefing. The Emperor rarely worried. He ruled the largest government in known space. Entire fleets answered his commands. Thousands of worlds paid taxes to his throne. Fear was something other people experienced, not him. Yet as he listened to the briefing, concern slowly appeared on his face. The intelligence officer finished speaking. The room became silent. Cassian leaned back. "Let me understand this." "Yes, Your Majesty." "You're telling me dozens of hidden human facilities are activating?" "Correct." "And nobody knows why?" "Correct." "And the activity started immediately after Princess Lyra's arrest." The officer hesitated. "Yes, Your Majesty." The Emperor tapped his fingers against the armrest, thinking, calculating, searching for answers. Finally he asked, "What do we know about the husband?" The officer exchanged nervous glances with his colleagues. Then he answered, "Almost nothing." For the first time in many years, Emperor Cassian felt uneasy, because powerful people usually feared known enemies. Unknown enemies were far more dangerous. And somewhere beyond the reach of Imperial control, pieces of a forgotten machine were coming together. A machine built by humanity. A machine hidden from history. A machine connected to one quiet man whose records seemed to vanish into darkness. The Empire still believed it controlled the situation, but the ground beneath its feet was already beginning to crack. The fourth day began with silence. Not the peaceful kind. The uncomfortable kind. The kind that appears before a storm. Across the Empire, military commanders were receiving strange orders. Fleet patrols were being redirected. Defense stations were being placed on alert. Communication traffic increased dramatically. Something was happening. Nobody knew exactly what, but everyone could feel it. Inside the Imperial Palace, Emperor Cassian stood before a massive window overlooking the capital city. Thousands of flying vehicles crossed the sky. Millions of citizens continued their daily lives. From a distance, everything looked normal, yet reports kept arriving. More hidden human facilities had awakened. More encrypted signals had been detected. More unexplained activity had appeared across known space. None of it felt accidental. A voice interrupted his thoughts. "Your Majesty." Cassian turned. Director Karan entered carrying another report. The Emperor immediately noticed the tension on his face. "More bad news?" Karan hesitated. "That depends on how you define bad." Cassian sighed. "Just tell me." The director activated a holographic display. Several star systems appeared, each marked with a bright blue symbol. "What am I looking at?" "Human fleet movements." The Emperor frowned. "I thought they dismantled their military centuries ago." "So did everyone else." Cassian studied the display. The number of symbols continued growing. 1 system, 5 systems, 10 systems, 20 systems. More appeared every second. The Emperor's expression darkened. "How many ships?" Karan swallowed. "We don't know." "Estimate." The director hesitated again, then answered, "Far more than they should possess." For several seconds, nobody spoke. Finally, Cassian folded his arms. "Prepare a diplomatic message." Karan looked surprised. "A diplomatic message?" "Yes." The Emperor stared at the growing display. I want to know what they're doing. For the first time, caution had entered his voice. Far away from the capital, Ethan Walker stood inside a command center hidden beneath Arion. The room had changed completely. The dusty underground chamber no longer looked abandoned. Large holographic screens filled the walls. Maps covered entire sections of the room. Streams of information moved constantly. Officers appeared through secure communications. Fleet commanders reported readiness. Strategic coordinators shared updates. The machine was waking up, and Ethan stood at its center. A notification appeared. Incoming transmission, Imperial Palace. The room became quiet. Several officers exchanged looks. Nobody expected this so soon. Ethan stared at the message, then nodded. Accepted. The main screen activated. Emperor Cashin appeared. For a moment, neither man spoke. One ruled the largest empire in the galaxy. The other repaired machines for a living. At least that was how the situation appeared. Cashin studied Ethan carefully. He expected arrogance. He expected anger, perhaps even threats. Instead, he found calm eyes staring back at him, the same calm that had unsettled people for years. Finally, the Emperor spoke. Mr. Walker, Ethan is fine. Cashin ignored the comment. I believe we need to talk. I agree. The Emperor leaned forward slightly. Your recent activities have attracted attention. Ethan remained silent. Several governments are becoming concerned. Still silence. The Emperor's patience began to thin. Would you care to explain what is happening? Ethan finally answered. Return Lyra. The room instantly became tense. Even through the screen, the atmosphere changed. Cashin narrowed his eyes. That is not how negotiations work. I'm not negotiating. The answer came calmly, without emotion, without hesitation. Somehow that made it worse. The Emperor folded his hands. You are making a dangerous mistake. Ethan's expression never changed. No, for the first time, something cold appeared in his voice. The mistake was taking her. Silence followed, long and uncomfortable. Then the Emperor spoke again. Are you threatening the Empire? Ethan looked directly into his eyes. No. Another pause. Then he added, I'm warning you. The transmission ended. Not because of technical problems. Not because of interference. Ethan simply disconnected. The command center remained silent. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Even experienced officers felt uneasy, because they had heard that tone before, years ago, during humanity's darkest days. Meanwhile, inside the Imperial Palace, Emperor Cashin slowly lowered his hands. Nobody in the room dared speak first. Finally, Director Karan broke the silence. Your Majesty, the Emperor continued staring at the empty screen. Then he asked a simple question. Who exactly is that man? Unfortunately, nobody had an answer. Hours later, another event shook the Empire. A transport arrived at the capital carrying a special passenger, Dr. Celine Voss, one of the galaxy's most respected historians. If anyone understood humanity's past, it was her. She was escorted directly into a secure conference chamber. Cashin wasted no time. I need information. Celine nodded. About Ethan Walker. About humanity. The historian became serious. That answer surprised her. Humanity? Tell me something we've missed. Celine sat quietly for several moments, thinking carefully. Then she spoke. 300 years ago, humanity fought a war unlike anything before or since. Cashin nodded. Everyone knew that, at least partially. Celine continued. The official records tell only part of the story. Now she had his attention. What part? The ending. The historian activated a holographic image. Ancient battlefields appeared. Destroyed fleets. Broken worlds. Abandoned stations. The war ended because humanity won. Yes. No. Celine shook her head. Humanity ended the war because it became too powerful to continue it. The room grew quiet. She continued. Their technology advanced faster than anyone expected. Their strategies evolved constantly. Their industrial output became impossible to match. What frightened the galaxy wasn't their victory. She paused. It was how quickly they achieved it. Cassian leaned forward. What happened afterward? Selene looked directly at him. They disappeared. The Emperor frowned. What does that mean? They hid their strength. The historian enlarged another image. Ancient shipyards, military facilities, research stations, all vanished from official records. Humanity dismantled its public military. They reduced their visible presence. They encouraged the galaxy to see them as traders, scientists, and explorers. Cassian felt a growing sense of discomfort. Why? Selene's answer came immediately. Because they were tired. The room fell silent. After a moment, she added, but they never destroyed everything. Cassian slowly stood. The meaning became clear. Humanity had not abandoned its strength. It had simply hidden it. And now something was bringing it back. At that very moment, deep inside one of humanity's ancient command vessels, alarms suddenly activated. Officers hurried across massive control rooms. Large displays filled with incoming data. Fleet formations updated. Communication channels expanded. Then a new notification appeared. Priority alert. Every officer turned toward the screen. A single message flashed. Target location confirmed. Far away, inside her detention chamber, Lyra looked up suddenly. Something felt different. She couldn't explain why. But for the first time since her arrest, hope appeared. Because somewhere beyond the stars, pieces were moving into place. The search was over. Humanity had finally found her. And for those responsible, time was beginning to run out. For the first time in decades, fear entered the halls of the Imperial Palace. Not panic, not chaos. Fear, the kind that grows slowly. The kind that appears when powerful people realize they may not be in control. Emperor Cassian stood inside the war chamber. Around him, military commanders studied incoming reports. Every few minutes, new information arrived, and every report carried the same message. Human activity was increasing. Entire sectors were lighting up with encrypted communications. Fleet signatures were appearing where no fleet should exist. Ancient stations were reconnecting to networks thought long dead. The pattern was impossible to ignore. Something enormous was moving, and it was moving with purpose. Director Karan entered carrying a fresh report. His face looked worse than usual. Cassian immediately noticed. What now? Karan handed him the datapad. The Emperor read it, then read it again. His jaw tightened. Is this accurate? Multiple confirmations. The room became silent. The report contained a simple number. 217. That was the number of hidden human installations discovered during the last 24 hours. 217. Nobody had known they existed. Nobody had even suspected they existed. The Empire suddenly realized an uncomfortable truth. Humanity had spent centuries building things in secret, and somehow nobody noticed. Meanwhile, deep inside the detention facility, Princess Lyra sat quietly. The guards had become nervous. She could see it. Their movements were different. Their conversations were shorter. Even their expressions had changed. Something was happening outside. Something important. A guard passed the chamber. His communicator suddenly activated. A voice came through. We just lost contact with Sector 8. The guard froze. What? No signal. Technical issue? We don't know. The transmission ended. Lyra watched the guard walk away quickly. Questions filled her mind. What could possibly make Imperial forces nervous? The Empire controlled thousands of worlds. It possessed enormous military power. Very few groups could challenge it. Yet fear was spreading. And somehow she knew Ethan was connected to it. Far beyond Imperial territory, inside one of humanity's ancient command vessels, hundreds of officers worked in complete silence. Unlike Imperial command centers, there was no shouting. No panic, no confusion. Everything moved with calm precision. The giant vessel drifted through deep space like a sleeping giant. At its center sat Ethan Walker. A large holographic map floated before him. Several officers stood nearby waiting for instructions. One finally stepped forward. Search operation complete. Ethan looked up. Status. We confirmed Princess Lyra's location. For a brief moment, relief appeared in his eyes. Only a moment, then it vanished. Security assessment? Another officer answered. Maximum level containment. Response estimate? Direct assault would succeed. The room became quiet. Everyone understood what those words meant. They could take her back. Right now, the technology existed. The ships existed. The personnel existed. But Ethan remained motionless. One officer finally asked, "What are your orders?" Ethan looked at the stars displayed on the map. For years he had avoided this life. For years he had chosen peace. He remembered repairing broken machines, talking with neighbors, watching sunsets with Lyra. Simple things, normal things. Things were always destroys. Finally he spoke. "Send a message." The officers exchanged looks. "A message? To the Empire?" One officer nodded. "What should it say?" Ethan answered immediately. "Give them a chance to make the right decision." Elsewhere inside Imperial space, something unexpected happened. Thousands of communication screens activated simultaneously. Government buildings, military stations, commercial centers, news networks. Everywhere, a single transmission appeared. The signal carried no threats, no demands, no propaganda. Only a man standing quietly against a dark background. Ethan Walker. Across the galaxy, billions watched. The human mechanic, the husband, the mystery. Finally speaking, his voice remained calm. The same calm people had mistaken for weakness. Princess Lyra was taken without evidence. Millions listened. She was accused without trial. Governments watched. Military leaders watched. Ordinary citizens watched. Ethan continued. The Empire still has an opportunity to correct its mistake. No anger, no hatred, no dramatic speeches. Just facts, simple and direct. Return her safely. A brief pause followed. Then he added one final sentence. If you choose otherwise, responsibility for what follows will belong to those who made that decision. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, reactions were immediate. Some dismissed it. Some mocked it. Others became very concerned. Inside the Imperial Palace, Emperor Cassian watched the message in silence. Several commanders looked furious. One finally slammed a fist against the table. "This is intimidation." Another nodded. "He is trying to pressure us." A third commander laughed. One man against an empire. But not everyone shared that confidence. Director Karan remained unusually quiet. Cassian noticed. "You disagree?" Karan hesitated, then answered honestly. "Yes." The room turned toward him. The director took a breath. "We keep focusing on Ethan Walker." Nobody interrupted. "We should be focusing on what stands behind him." Silence followed, because everyone knew he was right. The real threat was not one man. The real threat was a machine awakening around him. The hidden fleets, the secret facilities, the ancient systems, the things humanity had buried centuries ago. Hours later, another report arrived. This one changed everything. A military officer rushed into the chamber. His face was pale. "We have visual confirmation." Cassian stood immediately. Confirmation of what? The officer activated a holographic display. The room became silent. A giant object appeared. Then another. Then another. Ancient human warships. Not dozens. Not hundreds. Thousands. Entire fleets emerging from hidden locations. The scale was overwhelming. One commander whispered, "Impossible." Another simply stared, speechless. The ships were not invading. Not yet. They were positioning themselves. Waiting. Watching. Ready. For the first time, several Imperial officers began questioning whether victory was even possible. Back inside her cell, Lyra received unexpected visitors. 2 council members entered hurriedly. Their confidence was gone. Their authority seemed smaller than before. One finally spoke. "Princess Lyra." She looked up. "What is it?" The counselor swallowed. "We have a proposal." Lyra immediately understood. The balance of power was changing. Fast. "What kind of proposal?" The counselor exchanged nervous glances with his companion. Then he answered, "We believe a peaceful solution may still be possible." Lyra almost laughed. 3 days earlier, nobody wanted peace. 3 days earlier, nobody listened. Now everything was different, not because they had discovered the truth, not because justice mattered, because they were afraid, very afraid. And somewhere among the stars, Ethan Walker sat quietly aboard humanity's awakening fleet. He had offered peace. He had offered patience. He had offered a chance. The next move belonged to the Empire. But deep inside, many people were beginning to realize a dangerous truth. The calmest person in the room is often the one who does not need to prove his strength. And the Empire had spent days mistaking restraint for weakness. Soon, they would learn the difference. The galaxy held its breath. For 6 days, tension had spread from one star system to another. Governments delayed meetings. Military fleets remained on alert. News networks worked around the clock. Every world asked the same question. What would happen next? No one knew, but everyone understood one thing. The next decision could change history. Inside the Imperial Palace, emergency meetings continued without rest. Emperor Cassian sat at the head of a long table. The confidence that once filled the room was gone. In its place stood uncertainty. Around him, advisors argued. Military commanders wanted action. Political leaders wanted negotiations. Economic ministers warned that markets across the galaxy were already showing signs of panic. The Empire had never faced a situation like this before. Not because of war, because of the possibility of war. A young officer entered the chamber carrying a new report. Your Majesty. Cassian looked up. What now? The officer swallowed nervously. More human fleets have appeared. The Emperor closed his eyes for a moment. How many? Enough. Nobody asked for further details. The answer itself was terrifying. Meanwhile, aboard humanity's ancient command vessel, Ethan stood alone near an observation deck. Beyond the glass stretched endless stars. The same stars he had admired during peaceful evenings with Lyra. The same stars now watching the galaxy stand at a crossroads. Footsteps approached behind him. Marcus Hale stopped beside him. Neither man spoke immediately. Finally, Marcus broke the silence. They're scared. Ethan nodded. They should be. The old admiral studied him carefully. You still don't want war. It wasn't a question. Ethan looked toward the stars. No. Marcus smiled slightly. Good. After a pause, he added, because neither do the people serving under you. That was true. Most of the officers now returning to duty remembered the old war. They remembered loss. They remembered funerals. They remembered empty seats at family tables. None of them wanted to repeat history, but all of them were prepared if necessary. A message suddenly appeared on Ethan's wrist display. Incoming priority transmission. The sender surprised no one. The Imperial Palace. Ethan accepted the call. Emperor Cassian appeared on the screen. This time the conversation felt different. No arrogance. No threats. Only seriousness. For several seconds, both men remained silent. Then Cassian spoke. What happens if I refuse? The question was direct, honest. Ethan respected that. He answered just as honestly. People will suffer. The Emperor nodded slowly. And if I agree, then nobody has to. Another silence followed. Longer this time. Finally, Cassian asked a question that truly mattered. Why haven't you attacked? Ethan's answer came without hesitation. Because I don't want revenge. The Emperor looked genuinely surprised. Many people would have demanded revenge. Many people would have demanded punishment. Many people would have demanded blood. Yet Ethan wanted none of those things. He wanted Lyra. Nothing more. Nothing less. Cassian stared at him for several moments. Then he ended the transmission. No dramatic speech. No final threat. Just silence. Several hours later, the entire galaxy received breaking news. The Imperial Council had called an emergency session. Representatives from thousands of worlds watched the live broadcast. Inside the enormous chamber, political leaders filled every seat. Journalists packed observation decks. Security forces stood at every entrance. The atmosphere felt heavy. Everyone sensed they were witnessing a historic moment. Emperor Cassian stepped onto the central platform. The room immediately became silent. He looked around slowly, then began speaking. 6 days ago, Princess Lyra was arrested under charges of treason. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Cash-in continued. An investigation has revealed those charges are false. Shock spread across the chamber. Council members exchanged nervous looks. Some already knew. Many did not. The Emperor's voice grew firmer. The accusations were created by individuals seeking political advantage. Now the rumor erupted. Arguments started instantly. Angry voices echoed throughout the hall. Cash-in raised a hand. Silence returned. The responsible parties had been removed from power. For the first time, hope began spreading across the galaxy. Then came the sentence everyone had been waiting for. Princess Lyra is hereby released immediately. Across countless worlds, people celebrated. Not because they supported one side or the other. Because disaster had been avoided. At least for now. Hours later, a transport arrived at a neutral station between Imperial and human-controlled space. Lyra stepped onto the landing platform. For a moment, she simply stood there, free. Finally, the station remained quiet. Then another transport landed. Its ramp slowly lowered. Ethan emerged. The crowd, watching from a distance, remained silent. Neither spoke. Neither ran. They simply walked toward each other. When they finally met, words seemed unnecessary. Everything that needed saying existed in that moment. Relief, love, trust, home. Lyra looked into his eyes. You came. A small smile appeared on Ethan's face. Of course. She shook her head softly. No. Tears formed in her eyes. I mean all of this. She gestured toward the stars, toward the fleets, toward the events that had shaken the galaxy. You did all of this. Ethan glanced toward the distant ships, then back at her. No. Lyra frowned. What do you mean? His smile grew slightly. I asked. The answer surprised her, because it was true. Thousands of people had chosen to stand beside him, not because they feared him, because they trusted him. There was a difference, a very important difference. Several months later, life slowly returned to normal. Human fleets returned to hidden stations. Ancient facilities powered down. Emergency protocols ended. The crisis became history. Yet the lessons remained. Across the galaxy, schools taught the story. Historians wrote books about it. Leaders studied it carefully, not because of the fleets, not because of the technology, not because of the political conflict, because of what it revealed about humanity. For years, many species believed kindness came from weakness. They believed peaceful people lacked strength. They believed gentle people were easy to push aside. The Ethan Walker crisis proved something different. True strength does not need to shout. True strength does not seek attention. True strength remains calm until there's no other choice. One evening, months later, Ethan and Lyra sat together outside their home on Arion. The sun slowly disappeared beyond the horizon. Golden light covered the fields. For a while, they simply enjoyed the quiet. Then Lyra asked a question. Do you ever regret it? Ethan thought carefully. Finally, he answered, No. Why? He looked toward the stars. Because he understood something many powerful people never learned. Then he smiled and spoke. Power exists to protect what matters. The stars shined above them. The galaxy moved forward. And the story of a human husband who almost brought nations to their knees became a lesson future generations would never forget. Moral of the story: never mistake kindness for weakness. The strongest people are often the ones who choose peace even when they have the power to destroy. Real strength is not shown by how hard someone can strike, but by how much they protect, forgive, and endure.
Thanks for watching. See you in next video.